The three-headed snake had awakened from the noise Andre had made. It was now towering over the children. Iris told them that since they couldn't do it quietly, they should get ready for a fight. Cal whispered to her that the snake's weak spot was the top of the middle head. The little girl turned sharply and looked toward the kitty, who was just sitting there. She didn't realize who had said that. The kitty began to yawn. Her Majesty didn't realize if it was the kitty who did it. The little girl decided that she must be out of her mind. Her Majesty told the boys that the left head of the snake was spraying poisonous gas, so they should be careful not to inhale it. At this time, when the little girl was talking about this nuance, Andre had already disappeared. He was running towards the snake with words that he would slay it. Oz tried to stop him, but it was too late. Iris didn't realize what kind of crazy kid he was. Iris put up a defense against the flames. Oz didn't realize what kind of idiot he was. The toxicity of its poisonous gas wasn't lethal, but even one breath was enough to make a person hallucinate. They'd have to figure out a way to get Andre out of there. Oz agreed with her. Suddenly, Andre's voice was heard saying that Her Majesty was underestimating him. Iris was happy to see that he was perfectly fine. Andre explained that he wanted to become the strongest soldier of all humans. His older brother was the best knight in the Empire. He is the pride of the general's family. Andre's lifelong goal is to surpass him. Andre swung his sword. His brother wouldn't lose to some snake, so he can't lose either. Everything was on fire. Cal was surprised that the redhead was strong. Oz couldn't believe that the fire his father was talking about was the fire of the Pu Luo Zi family. The little girl was just as surprised. Fire magic without using chance, only the first stage, but already so powerful. Iris, unwilling to give in to the snake, decided to use her magic to create ice around it. Under the influence of Iris's magic, the snake was immobilized, frozen in the ice, giving the little girl and her companions the opportunity to gain the upper hand. Her Majesty decided to detain the snake with her magic, suggesting that the lads deal with its head, which is the source of the poisonous gas. The lads agreed to support her plan. The snake, once trapped, expressed its contempt for their efforts, emphasizing that they were seeking useless approval, surprising the lads with its ability to talk. Iris urged her companions not to trust the snake. She warned that the snake has the ability to penetrate people's souls and attempt to deceive them with promises and false promises. The snake, showing its aggression, scattered the boys in different directions with a powerful blow of its tail, demonstrating its power and danger. The moment the snake attacked, Iris realized that using the protective barrier was no longer meaningful because of the quick and unexpected attack. Cal, seeing the danger, quickly intervened in the situation, creating a protective barrier in front of the little girl to prevent the snake from striking. Iris, ready to strike, opened her eyes and was pleasantly surprised to find a protective barrier in front of her. This made her wonder who could have created this barrier. The little girl quickly realized that the barrier created was not her own. This made her somewhat anxious and curious as to who might have been behind the action. The mysterious voice that sounded so harsh asked her not to be distracted. Iris was surprised to find that this voice had reappeared at this critical moment. The little girl was involuntarily seized with curiosity as to who this stranger was and where he might be at this moment. This led to utter bewilderment in her mind. Andre, noticing her bewilderment, politely asked if she was all right. In response, she assured him that she was fine. The snake released the poisonous gas again, filling the air with its toxic breath, causing the little girl some anxiety and apprehension. In an unfortunate incident, Oz, who was nearby, accidentally inhaled this poisonous gas, which made him feel stupid and inattentive for getting into such a dangerous situation. The snake turned to the little girl and began to taunt and ask what a helpless and insignificant girl like her could do. Iris reacted with disdain, saying that she wasn't going to have a conversation with her, and insisted that the snake stop its taunts. Noticing that Oz was poisoned and needed help, the little girl decided that she needed to deal with the snake first in order to save her friend. In response, the snake merely informed her that he hadn't eaten in a while and hoped the little girl would turn out to be a tasty snack, threatening her with his presence. Cal decided that if he didn't intervene, there would be nothing left of her but bones. He walked around the little girl and began to use magic. As he got closer and closer, the snake couldn't understand why such a horrible creature was watching her with such a wary look. Suddenly, Andre came into view, reminding the snake that he was also present on this scene and ready to act. The snake mocked the boy for his insolence, but decided it was worth starting with the little girl to make her life a little more difficult, and only then turning its attention to the two boys. Attempting to bite him, the snake was forced to relent as Andre quickly recoiled, avoiding her attack. The snake's whistling tail struck the boy with force, throwing him aside where he landed slightly. Andre, despite the danger, openly voiced his threats to the snake, confident in his ability to destroy it piece by piece. The snake only scoffed at his words, emphasizing that none of the soldiers in the room were able to protect their comrades. In the same room where the battle unfolded, the little girl turned to her brother soldier for help, hoping for his support. Andre, as if in a state of hysteria, kept repeating that no one was able to defend themselves. His condition seemed half lost. Suddenly the boy collapsed on his knees in front of the snake, as if it was preparing for its fate, and the snake was about to devour him. The little girl instantly ran up and pulled Andre out, urging him to get away from the snake. The three-headed creature only increased its fury and aggression. The little girl insisted that the boys come to their senses as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Oz continued to whisper please, hoping his mother wouldn't leave him alone, and Andre remained unconscious. The three-headed snake announced that Iris was already tiring and sick of her. The little girl realized it was too late to create a protective barrier. In the next moment, the snake threw its tail in the direction where the little girl was. At this time, the observation room was watching what was happening. Bo-Tay suddenly jumped up from his seat, reacting to the situation. Simon asked Bo-Tay to calm down, because in the royal test, Quinn could not threaten the lives of the examiners with anything. In the entire history of the Quinn test, not once has anyone been hurt yet. Simon is completely calm, but this task with the three-headed demonic snake, he is afraid that with Her Majesty's level of magic, she won't be able to pass the test. The Prime Minister watched the teachers worried greatly and chuckled at the whole thing. He wondered if the little Empress would be able to pass the test perfectly, because there would definitely be no casualties. That was unlikely, only the Prime Minister thought so. He looked carefully at the Prince Regent and began to ponder that if the little princess couldn't pass the test successfully, there was no need to waste resources on involving his people in the process. Everything was proceeding as they had planned. As soon as the cloud of dust dissipated, the image of the little girl appeared in front of them. All three of them were sitting in a barrier surrounded by a magic circle and chains to ensure safety and control of the situation. Cal praised the little princess for her skillful work, noting that she had handled the barrier and probably even helped her through it. He noted that the cleansing technique of pure crystal heart magic had unexpectedly worked, but if the technique was interrupted, there was a good chance that the cleansing heart would be damaged, and then he didn't know whether they were smart or stupid. Cal used magic to throw the snake away. He thought that using the most powerful cleansing heart technique for the sake of those two boys to destroy the demon was a waste of energy. In Andre's mind, the doors swung open. A shadow, fears fading away. He saw Her Majesty speaking her thoughts on knights and their position to be brave and determined despite whatever hardships and dangers they had to overcome. Andre, realizing his mistake, boldly asked for her forgiveness, showing his willingness to correct his actions and become a better knight. Her Majesty, showing her wisdom and compassion, extended a hand of peace to him, inviting him to join her side and become her loyal servant. The little girl, regaining consciousness after the purification process, slowly opened her eyes, and Cal, who had been watching this process, realized that the danger had passed and the moment of trial was over. At this time, the snake approached the children, not stopping to say how the little girl had humiliated her and what she could afford to do. She ordered them not to move, threatening to swallow them whole in one go, which made the little girl prepare for the worst possible outcome. Cal, who was the source of this change, remained calm and majestic in his action. His skill was impeccable. Iris, for her part, was perplexed as to how she had managed to find herself in this situation, as it seemed she had done nothing to provoke it. However, realizing that events were coming to an end, she decided that it was time to end this ordeal. Andre suddenly blurted out that he was capable of many things. This sudden outburst of emotion greatly frightened Iris, and her magical defenses began to dissipate, not supporting her at this moment. The boy, full of determination and energy, declared that he was willing to do anything to become Her Majesty's knight. However, Iris found herself puzzled by his words and couldn't understand what he was even talking about. Cal, watching everything that was happening, was disgusted. He realized that his cleansing technique was working, but he couldn't understand what motivated this young man, what thoughts drove him to defeat the demon. While Oz's, the poison continued to remain in his system, which was quite unusual. Cal continued to scratch the back of his head, not drawing much attention to this fact, provided it didn't affect the little Empress. In a dark corner of the hall, the very same masked men were cautiously watching the children without giving away their presence. One of them turned to his superior, expressing impatience and asking when they would take action. In response, the gang leader assured that the beginning was not far off and urged that everyone be prepared to prevent the little Empress from passing her test. He reminded his subordinates that their first priority was to avoid clashing with important figures. When Oz finally rose from the ground, pressing a hand to his head, the gang's attention immediately turned to the little girl. Iris, turning in their direction, called out their unexpected retreat. Noticing that Iris was constantly looking around, Oz asked her what was going on. Her reply about constantly feeling someone's presence behind her caused surprise. Andre, full of energy and determination, turned to Iris, asking her to issue orders as the future great knight waited impatiently for orders. Iris realized that this was the worst time for distractions, so she decided to concentrate on the current situation. She instructed Andra to attack the snake from the right, to divert its attention while she and Oz focused on attacking its left head. The snake appeared puzzled as to how they were still managing to function despite their injuries. Her amazement only grew. In response to the snake's bewilderment, Andre only calmly emphasized that the young master was not only able to move, but also had the strength to cut off the snake's head. The snake, feeling confident in its strength, asked a rhetorical question, suddenly expressing its confidence in the successful outcome of the situation. However, the young master, despite his opponent's apparent confidence, replied that he definitely wanted to try again. Suddenly, the snake noticed the guy sneaking up from behind, causing her expression to change. She turned to him, wondering if they really thought they could trick her and destroy her in this way. With a barely perceptible movement, she flicked Andre away with her tail. The three-headed snake, seething with rage, accused her opponents of being nothing more than a useless, rotten bunch that she could easily devour. Oz realized he was trapped, unable to dodge the attack in mid-air. At the same time, Iris, concentrating her magical energy, began preparing for the spell. She directed all of her inner strength at the serpent, preparing for the decisive strike. Concentrating, Iris directed her magic at the serpent, managing to immobilize it in motion. Oz expressed confidence in her abilities, noting that her magical intervention came at just the right time. Following the opportune moment, Oz seized the opportunity and, acting quickly, delivered a decisive blow, severing the snake's head to completely obliterate the danger. Iris, realizing the success of their combined fight, expressed confidence in their victory, noting that the snake had underestimated their strength and was defenseless without its venomous weapon. Knowing that the snake might still pose a threat, Iris ordered her companions to finally end the threat, instructing them to cut off the creature's right head to make sure it was completely destroyed. Cal didn't think they would rally so perfectly and be able to chop off two of its heads. But this snake's will to live is incredible. If they take it out, there's nothing Iris can do anymore. This only made the snake more angry. She asked how dare they treat her like that. After all, it was just three little ragamuffins who were no better than mice. The three-headed one tried to get out. The three were just shocked at this turn of events. The snake kept saying that it would devour them. With her tail, she flipped Oz off. The boy asked Her Majesty to hide faster. He thought that now they will definitely die, because how this snake has the strength to resist. Cal, watching what was happening, finally decided to intervene in the situation, realizing that he should have helped. But lo and behold, he saw blood dripping from the little girl. It was Andre who had put his hand up, and the snake bit him, Iris place. Without thinking, the young master concentrated and used a fire spear spell aimed at the snake. As a result, the snake flew aside, freeing Andre from danger. Andre, weakened after the attack, lost his strength and fell to the floor after such an incident. Now the three-headed one was coldly mocking, because only she, the little Empress girl, was left. She kept asking about what she would do without the help of the boys. She was a girl without a sword. She has seen their memories, knows her life experience. Iris is just a wind-dependent little bird. Without the help of their wind, a weakling like her would sooner or later fall from a great height and shatter. Cal wondered what was going on with that powerful ice magic in her body. Iris answered confidently that she had never thought of depending on other people. Ever since her time travel, she had been alone and helpless and had never relied on other people. That's why she spent 24 hours, day after day, reading a lot of literature by the light of the lamp. Every minute, every moment of her life, she practiced her magic just in order to survive in this world. The snake had no right to call the little girl a wimp. Iris summoned the ice magic sword. Her Majesty took that sword firmly and proceeded to say that she wanted to share one simple truth with her. Birds don't care about gusts of wind, they rely on their own wings. The snake was completely covered in ice that she couldn't even move. She didn't realize who the little girl was. Examiner observation room. The general, after seeing this, jumped up abruptly and couldn't believe that it was ice system magic without a chant. At the same time, the Prime Minister sat frowning. After all, Her Majesty has the pure blood of the Christie family, the Ice Winter family flowing in Her Majesty. The priest speculated that she might possess such magical powers that could have been bestowed upon her by her ancestors. Yuli said that if Queen Lena knew that her daughter could awaken the ancestral gift of the Christie family, she would definitely rejoice. Yano sat confused. He kept thinking about the phrase the little girl had said. Chicks don't depend on the wind, they only depend on their own wings. Queen Lena, Yano's older sister, had said that phrase. She explained to her brother that he should believe in his own strength, even if he doesn't have the ancestral gift. He could still become incredibly strong. Yuli turned to His Majesty and asked about him not feeling well because he didn't react in any way to the shouting, to which Yano replied that it was nothing, he was just remembering a boring event from the past. He abruptly turned around from the aide. Her Majesty grew up in front of the general's eyes. He knows his uneasy character better than anyone. By saying that, he meant that he misses his sister very much. The general noticed the Prime Minister's hand and pointed it out to him. He only replied that he should not pay attention, because he saw how his favorite son was suffering and lost a little control over himself. The general said that the Prime Minister's son is a softie, but his son is tough, so he doesn't worry a bit. In fact, Monsiete thought that this child was just like his stupid, cold-blooded, and selfish mother. If it wasn't for her stupidity, he wouldn't have lost his home and the woman he loved. The minister's memories were disheartening. The city had been badly destroyed, and when they found his wife, she was already lifeless. This fact pushed the minister to the conclusion that someone other than her, the daughter of a criminal and traitor, should ascend to the throne of the emperor. Simultaneously with this event, the image on the crystal disappeared, leaving only emptiness and secret mysteries before their eyes. In the dark, mysterious, whispering woods, the little girl pierced a snake with her sword, daring to commit an act of desperate courage by confronting the dark menace. The gang watched the whole thing. They apologized, but Her Majesty won't be able to pass Quinn's magic test. Cal noticed those freaks and thought that they really could pick an opportune moment. Iris can't handle it, so he has to help her. Amidst the gloomy atmosphere, the gang appeared, and the little girl couldn't help but ask them who they were and what they wanted. Facing the 5 strangers, she felt exhausted and tired, lacking the strength to fight. In a moment of desperation, Iris remembered her ability to call upon the tracking crystal for help and began to look around for its support. The gang leader, not tolerating unnecessary talk, asked her what she was doing and, grabbing the crystal in his hand, simply crushed it, showing his ruthlessness. He then asked her to calm down, explaining that they didn't want her life and that it was important to them that she get a good night's sleep and not think about what was going on, assuring her that everything would work out and she shouldn't resist. Monsith assured that handling her would be easy, but they opted to set off with the 5 of them, not risking to approach the situation too lightly. Suddenly magic erupted and everyone present was puzzled, not realizing exactly who had caused the phenomenon. Out of his last strength, Oz decided to assist Her Majesty, begging her to run away while he himself stayed behind to help deal with the threat that had arisen. The head of the gang simply stunned the guy, after which he ordered those to follow a pre-designed plan of action. The Prime Minister kept his plan a secret, not sharing it even with the young master, which could lead to serious problems for both parties. Realizing that her time was running out, the little girl tried to avoid running into trouble, but she was only 1 point away from completing her exam. Suddenly, losing her balance due to an unnoticed rock beneath her feet, Iris fell unsuccessfully, feeling pain and frustration overwhelm her. Realizing that the fate of her mighty efforts for 4 years might be in jeopardy, she found herself in a position of powerlessness, under the watchful eye of the gang that towered over her. Suddenly someone's hand covered her eyes, and Iris felt a thrill of excitement sweep over her. The head of the gang expressed surprise, asking where this person had suddenly appeared from, since there shouldn't have been anyone else in their vicinity. It then became clear to them that the high priest stood before them. Cal warned to remain silent, which emphasized the seriousness of the situation. The guy used his golden magic system, demonstrating his skill and capabilities. The gang's swords were pointed at Cal, who, with a raised hand, was able to move them towards his opponents. He turned to the gangsters, wondering what they wanted back or how they intended to resolve the situation. At the threat of the swords, the gang members began to flee, but they were destined to face the extremity of their journey quite soon. A flash of memory flashed through Iris's mind as she suddenly recalled the man's voice. The same voice that had helped her during her fight with the snake. The snake had come to life, responding to her presence while hearing the scent of her blood. In response, Iris spoke words of thanks with a touch of sarcasm, signifying that his help was not entirely welcome. Cal replied that he had not come to her to help. One move, and he'd slashed the serpent. Iris then offered to let go of his hand. Cal wondered why he should not seize the moment and offer her a pact whereby she would give him the cleansing heart. The little one asked that he was the same black kitty, for his scent, and that Kitty's hap was the same, and his body temperature was the same. She thanked him anyway, whoever he was. The crystal that had been watching reappeared. Cal realized that it was useless to make a contract there, and it was still better to return to the silly Empress later. He took his hand away and simply disappeared. The little girl was left alone. She inquired as to where he was. A voice announced that they were congratulating the 3 examiners. They had defeated the 3-headed magical serpent. The first task had been completed successfully. Next, after completing the first stage, they were asked to move on to the second and final task, designed to test their strength and magical abilities. This transition required careful preparation, which caused Iris some concern. Iris only now realized that she was facing yet another test that she would have to deal with. Excitement stirred in her heart, mixed with a sense of determination and growing anxiety at the challenge ahead. The ground beneath her feet began to disintegrate, as if opening a path to the abyss, and the little girl felt space disappear beneath her feet, as if swallowing her into its embrace. This strange and mystical experience gave her inner state mixed feelings of amazement and anxiety. Gradually coming to her senses after this strange experience, the little girl found herself in a room designed for testing magic. There was an atmosphere of mystery and expectation all around, and she realized that the beginning of the second task had already arrived. Confused, Iris felt disoriented, not quite realizing her location after falling into the pit and losing consciousness. She realized that her headband was in place, in perfect condition as before. She was curious to know what kind of healing it was, that all the wounds were gone. No fatigue either. The voice informed her that the second task was the barbed shackles. This puzzled her. Her Majesty didn't understand why she hadn't read about it in books. Meanwhile, in the hall, the observation of the examiners. Yuli reported that the image had returned. The Prince Regent wondered why the image was disappearing. Was it really someone's cunning plan? Monsieur didn't understand how it was. If his plan had failed, the little Empress was still able to continue participating in the test. Simon furiously reported that the second task was black magic. Letting a child come face to face with black magic is too dangerous. But as if to cut off the teacher's indignation, he explained that there was nothing life-threatening on Quinn's test, so he should sit back down. The minister decided that he could only hope that the Empress herself would not be able to pass the second task. And the general didn't understand where the black magic came from. This time, the test is really too difficult. In the magic testing room, Iris was told that she should pay attention to the fact that this testing arena was in the real world. It was different from the previous illusion arena, so she should be well prepared. Iris realized that the past task was an illusion because she didn't have a scratch on her. Usually the test always goes for the easy tasks and then the hard ones, so this task is unlikely to be better than the task with the three-headed serpent. She really doesn't know Oz, Andre, and that other Mr. Black Seal. Are they still there or not? Branches with sharp pincers began to emerge from the darkness, surrounding the little girl who couldn't figure out what these strange formations were. The branches tightly wrapped around her legs, leaving deep scratches on her skin, from which roses would later grow, bringing her more pain and discomfort. Overwhelmed by the pain, she resolutely grabbed her sword and began to free herself from the embrace of those tough branches, eager to be rid of them. Despite the fact that there was no mention of such a phenomenon in her books, the little girl set to work, determined to simply destroy these thorny obstacles with the flame of her sword. Realizing that her power lay in magic, Iris turned to the sacred god of fire, Aiden, begging for help and strength. She asked for the gift of a fiery sword to help her defeat her enemy. Concentrating on her spells, she directed streams of magic towards the branches, hoping they would burn under the fire of her power. However, great surprise awaited her when she found that the branches did not succumb to the effects of her power, remaining unchanged before her magical fire. Suddenly the branches came to life and wrapped around her, restraining her completely. Iris felt pain and heaviness, enveloped in a mysterious magic that completely blinded her and robbed her of her ability to act. Cal appeared out of the darkness, bursting forth with an explanation that it was black magic, capable of neutralizing the power of fire. Her lack of understanding of the situation and facing the unexpected attack spurred her desire to understand what was happening and how to deal with it. When she heard his voice and realized he was nearby, a mixture of feelings awakened in her heart: surprise, fear, and something else she couldn't yet identify. Moving closer and closer to Iris, he gently pushed back branches, creating a passageway for himself. Looking at him closely, Iris sensed that he had grown considerably since the last time they had met. A shadow of familiarity flashed through her mind, as if she had seen him somewhere before. Full realization came to her with startling speed. She remembered that he was the sinister stranger who had broken into her room. Putting the fact of his crime before him, she frankly admitted it to him. Offering her a deal, he assured her that if she accepted, he would help her pass the test. The little girl, however, maintaining her resolve, confidently declined his offer, not giving in to his tricks. Relentless and persistent, Cal never stopped begging her to exchange her heart for his devotion. He was determined and ready to insist to the end, not about to give in, and persistently urged her to accept his offer. There was a sudden darkness in the hall where numerous observers had gathered as the image on the magic crystal disappeared without a trace or explanation. This unexpected turn of events shrouded the hall in darkness, causing anxiety and uncertainty. The general, feeling anxious and puzzled, manifested his concerns, demanding to find out the reasons behind the mysterious disappearance of the image from the room where the magic tests were being conducted. He insisted on being provided with explanations to clear up the mystery. Prince Ya No, despite possible explanations about technical malfunctions, concluded that it could be part of an insidious plot conceived by some of his enemies. His determination to look into the matter only grew stronger, prompting him to act quickly and decisively. He instructed his aide Yu Li to send his men to thoroughly investigate the situation, with the intention of finding out and eliminating the reasons for this mysterious disappearance of the image. The minister, who had not previously assumed that there were people who wished to harm the young empress, began to doubt his notions. If even his own son was caught up in this, he had no intention of forgiving those behind the incident. General Suis, as he watched the events unfold, noticed that Monsite also appeared confused, realizing what was happening, and it seemed that it was not his handiwork. The thought of possible interference from the Church of Dark Magic slipped into his musings. The exam task related to dark magic and created by Yano seemed to be under his complete control, which caused General Suis to wonder. He wondered how the human intrusion incident could have taken place, and whether that human was under the protection of the Dark Magic Church. Watching his lord's every movement, General Suis wondered if he should be concerned about Her Majesty's condition, or if there were any other dangers that threatened the Empire. The tension in the room where the magic tests were being held could be felt everywhere. In this tense atmosphere, Cal, who had suddenly interrupted the silence, turned to the little girl, wanting to know if she had accepted his proposal and if she had any decision to make about it. Cal's question as to whether the little girl had thought over his proposal was answered in the negative. She recognized that she was in no position to trust an obscure and potentially dangerous man. The rejection Cal received was crushing and unexpected, leaving him bitterly disappointed and feeling helpless. He felt stunned to realize that his offer had been ruthlessly rejected, and at that moment his heart filled with bitterness and resentment. Suddenly there was the sound of quick footsteps, and Cal was alarmed to realize that someone was approaching them with unusual haste. He warned that it seemed their conversation might be interrupted or moved elsewhere, emphasizing the suddenness and uncertainty of the current situation. Raising his hand and pointing his finger directly at her, Cal drew her attention to his words, drawing attention to her heart. He explained that the magical power of dark magic has a fear of the purity of the heart. It is where its true power comes from, emphasizing the importance of this inner source of power. By offering this unusual method to his queen, he hoped that she would find the courage and determination to tap into this incredible power that resided within her heart and was waiting to be manifested. Surprised by the unexpected turn of events, Iris watched him walk away confidently. Having decided to experiment, she realized that she had to act now, trusting in her own strength and confidence. The power of her heart proved to be far more powerful than she could have imagined. As she put her proposed method into action, a bright light began to slowly but surely fill the room, epitomizing the purity and power of her heart force. The aides were already standing under the doors, all talking about how as soon as they entered, Her Majesty's magic test would be cancelled. But here, if anything happened to Her Majesty, they should help. The voice of the examiner sounded firm and authoritative as he announced that this was an order from the Prince Regent, the ruler, and that they should strictly follow it despite any circumstances and objections. This unexpected news meant that regardless of all the candidates' efforts and accomplishments, their results could be cancelled if she disobeyed the order. The assistant examiners, though feeling helpless in the face of such a command, were forced to comply with their duties, having no other choice. However, before deciding to finally open the door, a bright light had already begun to burst out from that room, which instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. This light was so dazzling and piercing that its rays penetrated through the crack of the door, illuminating the surrounding space. The magical energy emanating from the room was so powerful that even through the tight slit of the door, it created a dazzling glow that illuminated the entire surroundings, filling it with sparkling rays of light. The little girl floated in the dark void, surrounded by shimmering traces of dark magic that gradually dissipated under her influence. Her mind focused, she was ready for further action. Turning to the Supreme Lord of Light, Iris asked for additional power to be granted to her novice. Let the pure, divine light turn into flowers, symbolizing her inner strength and light goodness. Slowly but surely, she began to create this divine flower, its petals and stem penetrating the darkness, directing its light into the very depths of evil to destroy it. Suddenly, the doors of the room swung open abruptly, shattering the moment of silence and controlled atmosphere, and a wave of excitement and surprise rushed into the room, disrupting the carefully maintained order. There was a bright atmosphere in the room, filled with light and an energy of anticipation that only intensified with the appearance of the examiner and his assistants, emphasizing the importance of the moment and the tension in the air. The little girl, remaining calm, politely greeted the newcomers, showing her professional training and confidence. Her greeting was followed by the announcement of Iris Yi Tai-no's high score in the magic test, which added to the emotional intensity in the room. An unexpected episode suddenly occurred in the observation room as Simon abruptly jumped up from his seat, stunned and shocked by this unexpected news, barely believing what had happened, which emphasized the importance and significance of Iris's achievement. The teachers and examiners surrounding Iris confirmed her success, stating that Her Majesty had passed the test with flying colors and deserved the highest grade possible. This announcement led to joyous comments and congratulations from all sides. At that moment, Iris realized that her efforts had been rewarded, and she felt proud of her achievement, as well as grateful to her mentors for their support and training. The priest thought that the decision for the highest grade was still exaggerated, but for her display of talent, strength, and character, Her Majesty fully deserved the praise. It was at this point that Cal appeared in the hall. He addressed the teacher, to which the priest replied that he had missed the spectacular scene of Her Majesty breaking free from the thorny shackles and dispelling the dark magic. Cal expressed his surprise and wondered if such a thing had actually happened. He regretted missing such an event, which appeared to be appreciated, especially in the context of the acting. The priest confirmed that the pure magic Iris had demonstrated was a rare occurrence, much to the surprise and admiration of the audience. Monsite pondered the second test, noticing that the image of the tracking crystal was steadily disappearing, and he began to suspect that it was part of Yano's sinister plan. Now he wondered how long he would be able to protect Iris. Yano announced that it was time to return to the palace, much to the surprise of Yu Li, who wondered why he wasn't going to wait for Quinn's test to be completed. To this, he replied that he had more important matters that required his attention. As they approached the gate leading to the testing hall, the examiner suddenly announced that Her Majesty had come first in the magic test. Iris, stunned by such news, couldn't believe her ears and decided that he was probably just joking. Doubts were swirling in her mind. Who was this guy really? Her first encounter with him had been filled with hostility, and now he was offering his help. This strange turn of events only added to the mystery of the situation. Walking through the gate, Iris noticed that she was the only person who had gone inside. Why hadn't the others come in yet? That question occupied her mind as she stepped forward. Unable to stand the weight, the little girl immediately ran up to the chief examiner and asked forcefully where the other participants were and why they were taking so long. In response to her question, the examiner only sighed, leaving the mystery unsolved. Talking about the past exam, he explained that all the other participants had already completed their tests, but the tasks were so difficult that no one but her had been able to successfully complete the last task. She was the only one who could pass the entire magic test flawlessly. After receiving instructions from the chief examiner, She was sent to await her results in the main hall. Realizing the importance of the moment, the little girl said goodbye to everyone present, feeling a slight excitement as she waited for the results. In the main hall, the center of attention and expectation, an atmosphere of tense anticipation unfolded. All eyes were on her, while Oz and Andre, without betraying their emotions, watched her from the sidelines, showing secret attention. Everyone started discussing that only Her Majesty was able to pass the magic test. Some replied that it was a lie because they didn't know what had happened on that last magical task and how she had passed it. All around, everyone kept talking that she couldn't have fooled everyone, that this time Quinn's test wasn't to put on a show for the little Empress. The little girl thought that guys were showing unnecessary confidence, which made her perplexed. Andre, unable to withstand such an atmosphere, started to defend Her Majesty's honor, but the chief examiner intervened, demanding to stop a possible scandal in the main hall. Oz's request to ignore possible gossip and rumors was understood and accepted by His Majesty with understanding, but Andre, hearing such words, was amazed and perplexed about what was happening. The young gentleman, who had been closely following the developments, realized that this conversation was not accidental, and concluded that they were once again being tried to be used as figureheads in political intrigues related to the royal family. In response to the support expressed by the boy, the little girl expressed her gratitude, feeling pleasantly relieved and realizing that there were those who believed in her and supported her. The chief examiner, the day's dignitary, stood before the audience to announce that Quinn's test results would be presented in roll call order, beginning with the participants who had failed to qualify. Laying out the list of participants in front of him, he proceeded to read out the names of those who were unable to overcome the barriers of the test, then proceeded to announce the 14 lucky ones who were successful in passing the test. As he approached the last available spot on the list, the tension in the room grew, and all those awaiting the results, including the 3 main candidates, tensed to the max, watching carefully for each name that was spoken. Eventually, when the announcement that the first place went to Iris Yide No was announced, a joyous excitement swept over her soul, and the sound of applause and cheers resounded throughout the hall. She found herself in a state of shock at her unexpected success, not believing that it was even possible. She was stunned and could not comprehend how she had managed to achieve such a result. On was happy to be the first. It was unbelievable. At the very beginning, she hadn't answered all 60 exam questions. Even if she got the highest score in the magic test, the first place couldn't be hers. An uproar rose up among the crowd. How is it that a 5-year-old child got the first place in Quinn's test, and how could this even be possible? The chief examiner explained that there were 7 sections in the written part of the exam, giving a maximum score of 70, and Iris scored 60. Despite her problems with the fencing part, her outstanding result in the magic test earned her 120 points, which was a record score in the last 100 years. This score was considered the best in the history of Quinn's test, which caused quite a bit of surprise. Iris was amazed at how highly her magical abilities were praised, considering that she felt as if her scores in the written part were insufficient for such an exceptional result. However, instead of disappointment, a sense of pride and confidence in her own abilities was sparked in her heart. She realized that even though it was difficult, she had met the challenge and displayed outstanding ability. Oz, who admired Iris's success, could not hide his admiration and expressed his confidence that Her Majesty truly deserved praise for her achievements. The young magister was amazed at the confidence and power shown by Her Majesty, not even realizing that she possessed such incredible abilities. His age and experience didn't even allow him to speculate about her unique capabilities. Suddenly, the voice of a guy from the crowd sounded, expressing disagreement with something. This sound was like a jerk out of the crowd of normal conversations, drawing the attention of everyone present. Everyone gathered realized that this was the same guy who had won second place in the competition. At first glance, he seemed like an ordinary commoner, not standing out among the crowd in any way. Everyone was surprised how he dared to object. Now he really stood out. It was going to be a real spectacle now. Joshua Clinton approached the chief examiner with determination, arguing that the Quinn test was a sacred examination designed by the three great sages, and there should be no room for ingratiation to the imperial family or abuse of power. He insisted that after more than a decade of preparation, he could not lose to a 5-year-old child, and suspected that the meddling of a worthless aristocracy seeking to upset the balance of power was behind it. The chief examiner, reserved and cold, expressed a word of caution to the lad, emphasizing that the reputation of the Quinn test had remained unblemished for hundreds of years, and suggested that he be careful about making remarks that might undermine that credibility. In response to Joshua's protest, the guards were called to lead him away, demonstrating a tough and unyielding attitude toward troublemakers. Joshua was screaming about how a 5-year-old couldn't turn him in. Even though she was a genius, she couldn't get top marks, and they were just a bunch of fucking aristocrats, unscrupulous. They couldn't believe that one dared to say that. An ordinary commoner dared to say such a thing. He's definitely suicidal. Iris asked Joshua if he had read Nietzsche's Will to Power by Nietzsche. She liked one phrase from chapter 17. The highest point of human mental deception is when someone, according to his personal preconceptions of his own goodness, wisdom, power, and importance, considers himself independent and the beginning of everything. Joshua was numb, and Oz and Andre were shocked. Her Majesty went on to say that the theory of the nature of things was a little difficult to understand, but there was one phrase in there that made her think deeply. You must be able to follow the trail of your thoughts like a hunting dog, carefully walking the winding path, following the mystery, pulling the truth out. She asked him what his favorite phrase was, because maybe they should reflect on it. Iris expressed doubts about her training in magic, and expressed her willingness to accept any advice that someone else might give her. Those present at the meeting were amazed at the little girl's unique abilities. She appeared to be able to control 8 basic magical elements simultaneously. This caused utter bewilderment among those gathered who couldn't understand how such a thing was possible, considering that she had just started learning magic. Joshua, excited by this phenomenon, admitted that he did not feel capable of teaching her, given the uniqueness of her abilities and the unfamiliarity of the situation. Iris, for her part, showing attention to every detail, signaled to the chief examiner that all aspects of testing and control were ready to be completed, demonstrating her determination and readiness for the next phase of testing. Inspired by her incredible abilities, Andre felt a rise in energy, while Oz, normally stoic and cold-blooded, was numbed by Her Majesty's ability to shut the mouths of those who doubted her abilities with just 3 phrases. The chief examiner said that since this misunderstanding had been resolved, he would not investigate further. He simply believes that she is the strongest child, but looking at her behavior, it is impossible to believe that she is only 5. The news of Queen Iris's victory in the Quinn test, achieved through her own efforts and magical talent, quickly spread to every corner of the state, causing a wave of emotion and hope for the rebirth of the I-10 Empire. A sense of deep trust in the young Empress swept over the entire population, and hope for a bright future and the awakening of a new era under her leadership resounded in their hearts. Her Majesty, Grand Empress Iris, took first place in the prestigious Quinn test, confirming her outstanding magical power and unrivaled talent, which drew even more respect and admiration from her subjects. At the same time, as screams of terror and fear echoed through the streets, under the backdrop of buildings blazing with flames, people fled in terror as they faced the monster that inexorably carried its terrible threat. The girl whose actions caused this chaos found herself utterly bewildered, not understanding who this monster was and why everyone was turning to her with such an accusation. The little girl, stunned and frightened, fell to the ground, praying that she would not be touched. At that moment, the priest suddenly appeared, stepping out of the shadows like some sort of protector in a world of chaos. In Iris's room, where a sense of security hovered, the maid Mei Li was carefully tidying her mistress's hair, expressing her admiration and stating that Iris was an extremely impressive person, something she never missed a chance to emphasize. Iris expressed her intention to slap Yano so that he would realize that she was not a weakling at all, though the maid begged her not to run away, urging her to stay and not take any chances. The test had been horrible, especially the surge of tension from the sudden attack of the assassins. And now she couldn't tell who had sent them. The boy they met again 4 years later, on the other hand, had been a help to her, showing some care and eagerness to win her heart. Boys are indeed mysterious, and this type especially disgusts her, if only based on past events. She can find no respect for him, viewing him with contempt. May reported that she had heard that the priest had recently returned with some girl he had adopted. The little girl immediately began asking questions about what she was like, that girl. She waited impatiently for an answer, for there would finally be a girl about her age in this palace. The maid explained that this girl was a bit strange. She had horns on her head, and she had also heard the officials say that if the priest didn't return in time, his child would destroy the entire city, filling Iris with dread and worry. Iris was sweating, feeling a rush of fear and anxiety at the unexpected threat that seemed to have suddenly appeared in front of her. A fire of anxiety flared in her heart as she realized she was facing something unpredictable and dangerous. She wondered if the priest had no problem bringing such a dangerous creature into the palace, noticing the discrepancy between the threat and the ease with which the girl appeared in the palace. She couldn't help but wonder about the true nature of the incident, wondering how such an unfamiliar creature could have gotten inside the palace's much-protected walls. With a knock on the door, Yuli entered and conveyed to Iris that Her Majesty Ya No wished to see her in her study, emphasizing the importance of meeting the Empress and causing her to feel a sense of obligation and responsibility. Questions and doubts arose in her mind, but she felt she had no right to refuse such an invitation, which carried the connotation of a command. Such an invitation made Iris puzzled. Why was Ya No inviting her, and what could be the reason for this meeting? However, Yuli insisted that she follow him. Her mixed feelings and thoughts confused her, but she realized that she was in for a meeting that was probably of great significance. Upon arriving at the office, Iris was greeted by greetings from Oz and Andre, adding to the mystery of the situation. There was a tinge of strangeness in their greetings, causing Iris to be somewhat incredulous as to the boys' intentions. Her Majesty expressed her pleasure to see the boys in her office, but their presence along with the invitation raised questions and some anxiety in Iris. The monarch's eyes showed genuine pleasure, but at the same time she felt a vague sense of uncertainty. Ibet turned to Ni. Oz talked about how his father had asked him to keep her safe and to learn at the same time, so he wanted her to give him some advice. Andre immediately started to correct him that he would be the one to keep Her Majesty safe, and then asked about what he could even do that. The looks between them mingled, reflecting some confusion and disagreement. Iris informed them that they should do a good job then. Her reply was short, but it sounded confident and cooperative despite some uncertainty in the situation. His Majesty, sitting on the throne behind them, suddenly announced that from the moment they arrived at the palace, they would become subjects of the Queen and could no longer keep in touch with their families. This announcement took the boys by surprise, causing them to freeze in bewilderment. Oz, gathering his thoughts, reminded himself of the words spoken by Her Majesty earlier, despite the surprise caused by this unexpected instruction. The words of the monarch echoed in his mind, reminding him of the importance of following instructions even in the most unexpected situations. Throughout this tense moment, the Queen continued to watch Oz closely, and his gaze crossed with hers, filling the air with tense anticipation. The gazes of the monarch and his advisor met in that moment when both realized they were facing a serious test. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Oz maintained his smile, showing determination and confidence in this difficult moment. He tried to maintain a positive mood and show that he was ready for any challenge, despite its complexity and unpredictability. The tension in the air had become so thick that Andre and Iris could feel its murderous aura, though they couldn't understand where it came from. Even the non-participating observers felt the tension that enveloped the room, making them feel a pressing heaviness and excitement. After His Majesty left the room, Iris breathed a sigh of relief, as if the released piece of ice had suddenly disappeared. At that moment, her tension dissipated, and she felt the weight of the looming atmosphere lifted. Andre, turning to the queen, dared to ask if the fellow in question had also been sent to the palace for her protection. His curiosity came from a desire to understand the nature of what was happening and to protect the monarch from possible threats. Iris, intrigued, wondered who this mysterious guy could be, and curiously lifted herself up on her toes, trying to get a glimpse of his figure. The fire of curiosity glowed in her eyes as she tried to penetrate the mystery of this encounter. Turns out it was him, the mysterious stranger who had sought to win her heart, and here he was, in front of her. Her heart beat harder with excitement as she realized that this man she had heard of earlier was standing before her, causing mixed feelings in her soul. Cal, noticing her gaze, responded with a wave of his hand in greeting, smiling back at her. Oz, turning to Iris, clarified that only 2 attendants had been sent to the palace to be by Her Majesty's side, and of course, his presence there was unrelated. After much conversation, they finally decided to take a break, settling down over a cup of tea. At that moment, a question that had long troubled Her Majesty came out of her mouth. She asked if any of them knew the true identity of the mysterious man. Andre, realizing that he did not know the truth, fell silent, shaking his head in denial. At that moment, Iris, turning to Oz, asked the same question that had plagued her. The attention of the whole company was drawn to his answer. Oz, perfectly calm as ever, replied that the fellow in question was called Cal. He is the adopted son of the high priest and a disciple of the latter. Adding a bit of mystery in his tone, Oz mentioned that rumors say that he has strong magical abilities. Andre, not hiding his surprise, gazed at Oz with incredible curiosity. He found it hard to understand how Oz was able to find all this information. Iris wondered if it would be too dangerous for her, since the priest lived in the palace, which meant that Cal did too. There was a knock on the door. The assistants came in, carrying large stacks of papers. They informed her that Prince Ya-No had said that she would handle all official documents from now on. She couldn't believe that much. Once the servants put those stacks of paper on the table, they explained that His Majesty had said that such a pile of documents was no problem for the person who took first place in Quinn's test. First place almost broke her heart. Iris was curious that they had sent her to Quinn's test to do the robot for them afterward. The 3 of them stood surrounded by tall stacks of paper that seemed inordinately huge. The servants who had re-entered the room reported that everyone had left, and now they were left alone with heavy thoughts. Oz, looking at his majestic mother, asked her about her condition, seeing that she simply could not hold back her tears, and this indifference to her suffering tore at his heart. The little girl was simply sobbing, as if from all the accumulated tension that had haunted her lately. Andre, who was feeling such anxiety for the first time, was amazed at how much paper was on the table and how much business had become on His Majesty's shoulders. Turning to Oz, he asked if he had noticed how much their situation had escalated and if he was willing to take any action to change things. Iris, raising her head from the table on which she had lowered it in despair, quietly assured everyone that she was fine, though their concern for her welfare was obvious. But she must complain about this documentary villain. Iris picked up her quill and set to work, feeling the weight of responsibility on her and the determination to get justice. At this time, Yuli informed His Highness that the Celtic Empire had sent their princess again with a proposal to marry him. According to them, if His Highness still did not agree, they would continue to build up troops at their borders, and they would not make any further concessions, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation and the need to make decisions. On the wall opposite the sofa where Ya-No was, a painting of Empress Lena hung on the wall, reminding them of past times and the greatness of the dynasty. Yu Li, observing the continuous confusion of her interlocutor, decided to pay attention to him, realizing that his decision was important for the future of the country. The prince, raising his wine glass to his lips, pronounced with a touch of weariness that he was abandoning the plan, expressing his determination and steadfastness in the face of difficult political dilemmas. Celtic's main strategy was to bring Yi No to their side, with marriage being only a part of the plan lined up. Maintaining the role of inattentive and indifferent, the prince inquired interestedly if there was any other important information. Yu Li did her best to pass on information that could prove to be key to the current situation. She mentioned that Her Majesty's 6th birthday was coming up soon, and the officials were wondering about the preparations for the event. Under the tense silence in the hall, the sound of a cracked glass in the prince's hands was crushed. His cold gaze pierced the aide. The latter realized that it was best not to ask the question about the details. Yu Li stayed by the portrait of the Empress and kept thinking that the birthday of Her Majesty was also the day of Queen Lena's death. His Majesty Ya No would never celebrate this day, but he hoped that he could get rid of his pain as soon as possible. But things had not been going well lately. There's a good chance that the celebrations won't be able to take place. A guard came running into that room and informed that there was trouble. Yu Li asked what had happened. He explained that a cloaked man broke through the imperial guards and broke into the palace. He is using a very strange magic, and they are unable to stop him. Yu Li asked in which direction he was heading, to which the reply was that, to the Forbidden Book Zone. Yu Li ordered him to quickly assemble an inner squad to protect the book court.